Hey guys, CS Joseph, csjoseph.life, doing another episode for season 22. This is episode 7. What are the cognitive transitions for ENTPs? My type, aka the rogue type. And we're going to be talking a little bit about rogues today and the 4 sides of the mind and how their transitions work mechanically speaking through chaotic transition versus orderly transition, etc. So yeah, just kind of, jumping ahead with the content because why not? But real quick, if you guys aren't aware, we started season 18. Season 18 will be an email-only lecture series. First episode went out, so if you guys have not gotten on our email list, I recommend you actually do. And that is at csjoseph.life/typegrid. Just put in your first name, hit the I am 16 years old, put in your email address, hit submit. You'll be sent our TypeGrid version 2.0. And you'll see that in your email inbox right away. And then just hang on with us. We'll be sending you probably maybe 2 to 3 emails a week. Most of those are just about, hey, there's this lecture coming out, etc. Information, things like that, as well as some letters to our patrons as well. So not interested in spamming you. It's more of how can I inform you of what is happening or things are coming. So, but also we'll be sending out email lectures to our email list at least once, maybe sometimes twice a month. So if you want to get in on season 18, which is probably the most important season I will ever release, quite frankly, then I recommend you get in on that right away. So anyway, rogues, ENTPs, cognitive transitions, let's talk about that. So how to find them on the type grid. They are starter types, which means they have a hard time finishing what they start. And they're informative, initiating movement. Informative meaning they're very indirect with what they say. And instead of just being really direct, this means that they're choosing their own role in the conversation. If they were direct, but they're not, they're informative, so they're allowing you to choose the role, choose your role in the conversation. What that looks like is that they're either going to make a broad statement and let you come to a conclusion on your own, instead of someone who's direct, where they're just going to make an explicit statement without any implications. ENTPs are all about implications. Implications are everything to ENTPs. Gosh, I really hope the sound is actually good on this. I'm filming again with the Filmic Pro, guys, and I believe I'm doing 720p at 60 frames a second, and I hope the stereo sound is working well. And again, choosing not to film with my microphone again, so hopefully this works out. I'm really hoping the quality is so much better. And it's a $20 app or $15 app, I don't remember, but I was told that it is the de facto gold standard of filming on an iPhone, so that's what I'm doing. So yeah, also my wife decided that I needed to wear something other than black and blue and gray all the time, so she got me a white shark shirt. So I'm wearing a white shark shirt because she wanted me to. And so there you go, Railgun, ladies and gentlemen, got me to wear something different for once. So I love my dear wife. She is a fantastic, very wise woman. So anyway, moving forward. So back to starter type, informative, initiating movement. So ENTPs, we are initiating. We prefer to go to other people for information instead of having people come to us. Although when people do come to us, sometimes we can like it because it puts us in the position of power, such as being a responder is a position of power. That's just how that works. And we're also very movement. We don't really care so much about the goal or the outcome, although we wish we did, but we are all about progression, meaning that we like to have progress. And if we don't have progress, we're going to go crazy. And progress is like everything that we need to be able to get through things. Progress means that, hey, at least I have progress, at least I have this. And I think it really comes from the fact that we worry about our own future so often because worried about actually not getting to the goal, not getting to the outcome, but at least we have progress for it. At least we have that. And that's the thing about ENTPs. If you give them an inch, we will take a mile. We will always take a mile. That's just kind of how we work. Even the smallest piece of information, we could do severe damage or gain huge amounts of success with the smallest piece of information. It's funny, you're having a conversation with an ENTP, they're asking you questions about a variety of different topics, or maybe a specific topic, but then trying to get you to say something, but then you say something, and that's the piece of information they wanted from you, but it had nothing to do with the topic that they were actually talking about. It had something to do with a completely different topic or a different nuance entirely. You can never really tell with the ENTPs because their line of questioning or, their logic, if this, then that, right? If this, then that. If this, then that. Constantly in their head. It's like they're walking IFTT people. And based on that, it's really important, just to be aware that just because they're conversing with you or having a question, or that you're giving the information you give them may not necessarily be relevant to what they're really talking about at that moment in time. It might be for something completely different. And that just plays into their vice of insincerity, versus sincerity. And that's how they can also be really, really informative instead of direct with people in their communication style. So anyway, that's what makes them a starter type, and that's how you identify a starter type within the type grid to help find yourself a rogue or ENTPs. ENTPs also, they like dressing in black or gray or navy blue, dark colors. Dark colors we're the most comfortable with. The higher the expert intuition a person has, the more they dress in dark colors. So any parents, NPs in general, any heroes, we all like dressing in dark colors. Dressing for comfort, but also just kind of, as much black as possible. I'm wearing like black pants with this white shirt with black sharks on it, but it's still very ENTP kind of thing to do. Also, solid white they can also do. Maybe solid white and jeans. It just really depends. And, ENTPs clean up real well, especially when it comes to being in suits and whatnot. I mean, they are the Tony Stark type, so let's be honest about that. They can clean up pretty great. Never not be Tony Stark. So, just be aware of that. In terms of, if you really want to spot an ENTP, just look for as much darkness as possible. The whole adage, tall, dark, and handsome, while they're talking about an ENTP, coquettish male, basically. ENTPs are all about being coquettes as well with their seductive style, and I can't wait to be doing the lecture series on seductive styles in the future. That's going to be fantastic, so looking forward to that as well. And I think we have a regular posting schedule now. What I'm doing now is I'm filming all the content for at the beginning of the month. We're trying to get as much content filmed, and then we're just putting them out on a schedule now, so they should actually be coming out regularly now. Not something that we've really done so much in the past, but now that I have a lot more control over the systems of the company and we kind of know what's happening, we're going to have a better release schedule. Anyway, back on topic, because I'm very tangential, because I'm an ENTP. For some reason people think otherwise, but whatever. They are entitled to their opinion, but they are not entitled to share it. So, anyway, with that being said, also in the type grid temperament-wise, ENTPs are intellectuals, aka NTs. NTs are very pragmatic, so they're very independent. ENTPs will say one thing and do another. ENTPs do not ask permission for anything. They only ask for forgiveness. Unless they're ISFJ subconscious focused, then they'll ask for permission every now and then, or they'll feel a lot of social pressure to ask permission in certain situations, but they need to be a little bit more pragmatic to help them develop their ego, etc. And the biggest way I can recommend that is just to get away from your family. Seriously, just get away from your family, ENTPs, because if you do that, you can be your own person. The faster you can move out of your family, if you're male or female, the better off you are, because then you can actually think for yourself for once and not find yourself yourself obligated or loyal to the wrong people, which we'll talk about a lot in a few minutes here. So, and how to deal with that. Moving forward. Very pragmatic, very abstract, all about the constant what if, big picture people. ENTPs are also known as visionaries, are all about the vision, although it's hilarious to me how STPs think they're like ENTPs because, they get involved in the psychedelics and then they feel like they're NE users when the reality situation is they're not, and I always chuckle to myself every time I encounter one of those. It's hilarious. I mean, it's no different than the ESTP, a certain ESTP on YouTube who likes to take a couple of bong hits every now and then pretend to be an ENTP on screen. I mean, there's no different. There's no difference there. LOL. When he's like, SE hero, whatever. He doesn't make any what-if statements to save his life. I mean, he'd have to be high, at least, to do that, to get, but whatever. It is what it is. Pragmatic, and they're also very systematic. ENTPs they're method men. They're all about, or women, all about finding the best way to do something, all about systems, etc. And trying to fit people into systems is very hard, but at least they have extroverted feeling, a child, which allows them to navigate the social realm well enough, but that FE child can be taken advantage of. One thing about FE child that's like super annoying though is that when FE child is like being nice to a member of the opposite sex, that member of the opposite sex automatically believes that the ENTP is like into them and trying to have a relationship with them, which is not actually true. ESTPs have this problem all the time as well. FE child, wherever FE child is, if FE child is used towards a member of the opposite sex for some reason, the member of the opposite sex just assumes or thinks that the ENTP or the ESTP is going after them, which can be a good or bad thing. I don't know how many times I used FE child in certain situations with the opposite sex and found myself thrown out of a store or a restaurant where the reality situation was I was just being nice. I had no desire for that person whatsoever, but they assumed so, and that was a lot of drama that I didn't really need in my life. And that's happened to plenty other people with FE child that I know. It's really, really annoying. FE child also can give ETPs like this reputation for being hoes and hoeing around, when the reality situation is we're not hoes, but for some reason everyone thinks we are. Okay, granted ESTPs do have the nymphomania vice, but sometimes it's like having this attitude of, well, if I'm going to do the time, I may as well do the crime kind of a thing. When people start spreading rumors about the ESTP, then they come to that conclusion, and that's not actually the case. But moving on, being systematic, ENTPs are not really aware of interest things. So like one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give an ENTP as a result is like, hey guys, anytime you encounter any other human being, or anytime you're involved with another human being, or any situation involving another human, you have to ask yourself this question immediately. It doesn't matter if it's your spouse or your child or any person. This applies to every human being in your life, ENTPs. This is a new system that you need to adopt for yourself and your self-discipline, and force yourself to do this every time you encounter another human. So ENTPs, here it is. Ask yourself this question. What is it this person is getting out of the situation, or is this person getting more out of the situation if I am? If the answer is yes, then I am automatically, by default, being manipulated by this person, whether or not this person is aware of said manipulation or not. That is a fact. The faster you ENTPs figure out that you're being taken advantage of so easily because of your SI inferior and your FE child, the better off you be. And then, hey, by the way, once you figure that out, you can actually be a little bit more sincere to people. Because, like, hey, you actually aware all of a sudden using your ESFP superego and piping it through your SI inferior self-discipline, where you're literally developing a habit with your SI inferior, the habit of asking yourself, hey, what is this person getting out of the situation, and are they getting more out of it than I am? And if they are getting more out of it than I am, then that means they are manipulating me, and I should probably get rid of that person immediately, get them out of my life. Yes, that's actually how it works. INTJs have that figured out for the most part. Why can't ENTPs do it? Well, it's because their subconscious, their unconscious, and the ego, the ENTP, are all systematic, and it's only their superego that is interest-based. So but you can use the interest awareness of your superego by training your SI inferior through self-discipline and forming healthy habits like this one, to have the habit of doing an interest check with people. And then eventually you'll grow that habit and be doing constant interest checking with every human being you encounter. I don't know how many people I've blocked this year alone for doing that. And it's always INTJ women who think for some reason that just because they're INTJ women, they're entitled to free stuff from me for some reason. So I just block them and then I laugh at them because, or I expose them publicly after the fact, because they're just, they could be, the ones that I've encountered have been really snaky about it, and they're thieves, they're literal thieves, always trying to I thought we were closer than just a regular customer, so that means I'm entitled to getting some free advice from you, right? No, it's really frustrating, and they just do that. So watch out, ENTPs. Everyone will try to prey upon that. And another thing regarding that, statistically, out of all the types, ENTPs end up being in sexual relationships with people who are way older than them or way younger than them. It's never really somebody, it's rarely, if ever, somebody who is in their same age group. It's very rare that happens. So, and one of the reasons why is because of the lack of being interest-based and the fact that an ENTP can just become loyal to just about anyone, which is really frustrating, because SI inferior can do that. Even ENFPs have that risk, but at least ENFPs have FI parent to get in the way, and FI parent can kind of protect the infant that is the SI inferior. The TI parent doesn't really necessarily do that because it has to get in the way and interfere with FE child and SI inferior simultaneously, which means it's a lot more work for TI parent to deal with, right? And the any hero is just so systems focused, it's not really focusing on interests. So do yourself a favor, ENTPs, develop this habit now. Seriously, do it. Do yourself a big favor, because if you don't, you're gonna have a big problem on your hands. So, but cool. So yeah, they're NTs and intellectuals. The virtue and vice already touched on a little bit. Sincerity versus insincerity. Sincerity means is that, ENTPs are not afraid to tell the harsh truth, whether it benefits them or not. One thing you'll notice about ENTPs, they're very giving people, very, very giving people with FE child. And while they can covert contract and sometimes can caretake, ENTPs also end up giving a lot to people without expecting anything in return. And it's so funny that after the ENTP becomes a little bit more interest aware by tapping that interest power of their superego into their SI inferior, that all of a sudden they start to realize just how selfish and entitled people really are. And then all of a sudden the ENTP wisely uses TI parent to basically turn off FE child. And that's one of the reasons why TI parent development is so important, is by turning off FE child, because FE child just needs to be turned off sometimes. Yeah, you're going to feel guilty for doing it. You're going to feel heartless for doing it. But you're going to have to do it for self-protection, ENTPs. It's absolutely necessary, or else you're going to get manipulated AF, and you don't even realize it. You find yourself obligated, to the wrong people. That's not appropriate, right? So that also allows you to be sincere. If you want to develop your sincerity virtue, well, guess what? Turn off your FE child. Otherwise, if you have your FE child turned on all the time, you're going to have to become insincere, because you're going to have to lie in order to get what you want, instead of being honest and get what you want, which is better every time. People respect you more for it anyway, let's be honest. So understand that for your temperament. Temperance and NTs and intellectual, systematic, pragmatic, abstract, very important. And then your virtue and vice, sincerity versus insincerity. And that's kind of where it comes from. So the four sides of the mind of an ENTP: the ego is the ENTP, the subconscious is the ISFJ, also known as the Knight, then the unconscious, the INTJ Ranger, and the superego is the ESFP, also known as the dualist, or in this case, chaotic evil joker, demon on crack, etc. But yeah, that is those are the ENTP four sides of the mind. And each side of the mind, just like with all the types, has its own cognitive transition. And cognitive transition is where you are basically in your ego, and you can transfer to one of the other four sides of the mind to become that type. Or you can stretch your own soul out within yourself and become multiple types simultaneously. Or as you get more and more skilled, you can oscillate between all four sides of your mind with insane accuracy at rapid speed, second by second. where like 1 second you're in ISFJ mode, and then boom, you're in INTJ mode, and then boom, you're in ESFP mode, and just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth constantly as quickly as possible within a certain amount, a small, short window of time. This is actually attainable. So eventually you can stretch yourself and actually be many simultaneously, or you can focus on the one. Cognitive transition is very interesting like that. The more skilled you are, the more neural pathways within your brain that you've opened up to be able to access those sides of your mind and basically think and feel differently, make decisions differently, perceive information differently, consider other people's perspectives, and take on their perspectives as your own perspective with the other sides of your mind. You will become so much more capable, so much more intelligent. And ultimately, that is the path to enlightenment, aka cognitive integration, because the four sides of the mind are disintegrated and they need to be integrated. But if you want to find out more about that path to enlightenment, Season 19 further expands on this at csjoseph.live/Patreon, which is like for $25 you get gold tier membership, and at gold tier membership you get access to the private lectures, and there's a lot of them. I think we have all of Season 14 and more than half of Season 19 available. And by the way, INTJ and INFJ is dropping this month, so you guys might want to get in on that. It's a very, very fun month for Patreon this month, so get in on that while you still can. So yeah, back to our main topic here. So, four sides of the mind, think of them as like a farm. You have 4 different fields, and like your ego is the main crop that you water. It's very very consistent, very expected, very safe, because you're gonna be able to sell that crop and develop it. The subconscious, it sucks. It's an inferior crop. It's not really that great of a crop, but if you develop it over time, it'll become an even better crop than your ego crop. And then your unconscious crop, it's kind of more like, something, I just kind of have to make it because it helps sustain things for the rest, and I'm not going to be able to have the skills necessary to get to the 4th crop, which is the furthest away crop of your main ego crop, to get there. And then sometimes people get foolish and try to go from their ego to their super ego for some reason, and that's a problem. And cognitive transitioning with this farm model is you have basically the same amount of water that you get to use in this self-contained ecosystem, and you can spend all that water all on your ego, or you can spend all that water on any of the other 4 sides of your mind, or you can stretch out some of that water between some of the other fields, or 2 fields, or 1 field, or 3 fields, or 4 fields, etc. And you can move that water through irrigation and pumps throughout through each of the irrigation gateways, also known as cognitive gateways, within your mind, to be able to access the various areas of your mind using that substance of your soul, which is basically the water in this particular example, right? So with that being said, you have to go through cognitive gateways to be able to handle that. Now, an ENTP, okay, any hero, we're basically like water, so using a water example is probably the most pertinent. So, that level of pertinence is, it's important. It goes pretty far to that end. But you have to get the water through the gateway somehow. But if you have like a huge water tank and you're emptying it through a gateway and you're doing it all at once with max pressure, it's just going to go ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. It's going to come out in a very chaotic manner. It's not going to flow nice, like a really nice stream, right? Whereas if you have a more controlled pour of that water into the field, basically, it's not going to be chaotic. It's going to be coming out of that tank in a very nice, smooth stream, and that's an orderly cognitive transition where that water is being moved, to that field within this example. So, water. So everyone has to basically master their 4 inner cognitive gateways. The 4 gateways: the gateway to the ego, the gateway to the subconscious, the gateway to the unconscious, or aka the shadow, the gateway to the superego, the 4 sides of the mind, to be able to become their highest self. More on that in Season 19. But there's orderly transitions and chaotic transitions. And chaotic transitions, those are the default. going through those irrigation gateways or those gateways in a chaotic manner, in a forced manner, instead of a controlled manner, right? In a very movement manner instead of, or a very progress-oriented manner. It's like cutting corners. It's just jumping in, right? Very progress-oriented instead of outcome-focused. Order determines outcome. That's why we need to be going through our cognitive gateways in an orderly manner. And with our ego, if we're being chaotic with our ego's gateway, well, then we're going to end up developing irresponsible behavior. If we develop our second gateway, which is our inferior function, then we're going to be giving into fear. That's a chaotic transition through fear. And then the third gateway, which is the Nemesis Gateway or the villain gateway, it's where a person's worry is going to be the chaotic transition there. And then the demon at the end is basically someone's self-mastery and whatnot, but it's hatred. It's hatred where the final gateway is versus love, right? So love instead of hatred, love would be the orderly transition into the superego. Whereas, and then for like the third gateway, going backwards now, the third gateway would be, instead of worry, it would be certainty, right? And then fear versus faith for the second gateway, and then basically the responsibility, being focused on responsibility, is how to use the first gateway effectively. So those are all the chaotic transitions and the orderly transitions. But how does it actually manifest within an ENTP? So remember, during a person's cognitive development within their ego, their hero function is given to them by default, right? And and then your child function develops second, and then your inferior function develops third, and then finally, at last, your parent function develops last. And the parent function, also known as the auxiliary function, and this is where people start talking about subtypes. Like, for example, Dave Superpowers, and he goes on and on about subtypes, etc. He's basically describing people who have developed parent functions and underdeveloped parent functions. That's literally it. When he starts talking about people who are like jumpers, etc., a jumper is somebody who is like, oh, well, I'm jumping over my parent function directly to my child function. And really all it is that the parent function is just underdeveloped, right? They prefer to use their hero function and their child function, and not necessarily their parent function, because their parent function is underdeveloped, and it's the parent function that runs interference between the hero and the child function. And that's how that works. But for some reason, everyone, he presents this, multi-type theory when he's not really looking at the base cognitive attitudes of the functions themselves per se. But that being said, the subtype system is interesting, and it is a rational way to explain the relationships, or at least a rational way to label different kinds of people who are different in various forms of cognitive development, right? Except as they develop, obviously their subtype would change according to its system, etc. Whereas where I'm trying to say is like, no, the system is the system, and you're not going to change. It's just where are you in your personal cognitive development that determines, where you're at, basically. And it's not necessarily your type that's changing. It's just your level of development, your level of integration that's changing. Like, where are you in your personal maturity? How are you maturing as a person? Are you being more responsible? Are you being more humble? Are you being wise? Are you getting self-mastery? Those kinds of things, and where the cognitive functions actually produce those fruits, those results for yourself as a human being, right? And that's the difference. Kind of interesting that I'm talking about that here. Wasn't actually planning on that, but yeah, why not? I always like to throw interesting gold nuggets within these lectures. So, the hero function is the first gateway, and that's expert intuition, which is aware of everyone's collective future. It's basically the zero to the algebra for Jungian analytical psychology. Jungian analytical psychology psychology cannot exist without awareness of the collective unconscious, which is extrovert intuition, which is awareness of humanity's collective future. It's not so aware of one's own future, although it is aware of one's own future, but it is very limited range, but it is aware of everybody's future at that same limited range. Whereas an NI person, an NI hero, can see one's own future only, but can see very far in the future, but for their own selves, not for everybody collectively around them. This is where one of the huge debates with other people have, a lot of my critics, because they're like, oh, you have your definitions wrong. I'm like, no, actually, you all have your definitions of cognitive functions incorrect. You have them backwards. You need to understand extrovert intuition and the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, it's collective, just like TE is collective thinking and FE is collective feeling. Collective intuition is extrovert intuition. Intuition being the unconscious, the collective unconscious. It's not that hard, people. Like, get a dictionary. It's not that hard. So any hero is the first gateway, and it's awareness of everyone else's futures. And because that awareness of other people's futures, then you have the third gateway, which is introvert intuition nemesis. It's where the ENTP starts to worry about their own future. And, when they're really getting into worrying their own future, and I realize I just skipped to the third gateway here, but I don't care. Third gateway-wise, when they're worrying about their own future, they try to use their any hero to intertwine their own future with other people so that there is shared mutual destruction, basically. So, like, if someone else is successful, if the ENTP helps someone else get successful, or someone else has a better future, the ENTP gets a good future as well. So it's kind of interesting, even though they're very systematic, at least the ENTP basically knows that, having the shared interest of, I'm going to attach my future to your future, so that if you're successful, I'm a success. But if you fail, then I fail, basically. So that can backfire, and that's why ENTPs got to be careful who they allow themselves to be loyal to, because that loyalty will potentially bite them in the rears, because they attach their future to so many other people and have way too many obligations that it becomes super unsustainable, and then their entire life implodes. That's appropriate, right? So yeah, don't do that. But going beyond that, like from an any hero standpoint, back to the first gateway. It's all about, being responsible with it. Are you responsibly giving other people better futures? Are you having responsible visions? Are they fact-checked? Are they, is there anything behind, the kind of future that you're striving for? Is there any real substance to it? Or are you nothing more than a straw man or a flimsy charlatan? Something that ESTPs are very quick to point out or assume, etc. As many of the ESTPs on the YouTube blogosphere have pointed out towards me, but too bad none of their criticisms actually stick. Unless, of course, they just want to take what I say out of context, then freak people out over nothing. But apparently, that's just what they want to do. So I don't know. At least I'm not the one getting bashed for plagiarism. So that's another story entirely. So with that being said, the first gateway is kind of really, it's by default, but really, gaining the ability, it's all about being responsible, right? You want to make sure that you are actually being responsible with your hero function and utilizing it to solve actual problems. Sure, give other people better futures, but don't do it in such a way where you're not getting anything out of it, because that's very irresponsible. And remember what I told you, you guys have to utilize your second gateway to develop the habit of making sure that you are becoming more aware of what other people's interests are in a given situation or interaction with a fellow human being. This is absolutely required. This is absolutely necessary as an ENTP. Otherwise, they'll just take advantage of you, because ENTPs get really stupid about this. They believe, INTPs the same, by the way. ENTPs are just trying so hard to find the best way to do something that, an interest-based person, because they're not systematic, they want to create a win-win or a win-lose with them getting the win. They don't, oftentimes, I find interest-based people not really caring whether or not they take, if they are getting a win and another person is taking a lose. So it's like, yeah, they don't care if the ENTP is taking a lose. They just don't, in some cases, because they can be selfish, because everyone can be selfish. And the ENTP imagines that lose is they're just sacrificing themselves for the greater good, right? Going all Gellert Grindelwald here, who is also an ENTP, sacrificing oneself for the greater good. Very Tony Stark as well in terms of Avengers Endgame, let's be honest. I discussed that more in Season 14 with the ENTP episode. That's Episode 7 of Season 14. But having that self-sacrifice, the ENTP is ultimately taking that lose for the sake of the greater good, for the sake of the system, for the sake of the best way of doing something, and that's not appropriate for them because it's not sustainable. And the ENTP needs to learn this as soon as possible. So mastering their gateway of their first gateway is basically coming to that conclusion and then working with their second gateway to make sure that habit is formed, to always ask what a person's interest is in any situation or interaction. What are they getting out of it? And if they're getting more out of it than I am, then I'm being manipulated. And then treat people accordingly. Call them out. Use your TI parent for once. And it forces TI parent to grow. It's really, really important. This is important to have healthy habits, ENTPs, or you will not be successful. Speaking of healthy habits, so SI inferior is the second gateway, and it's the gateway into the subconscious. You cannot become your best self, ENTPs. You cannot become the ISFJ knight, best self, amazing martial artist, capable fighter for the sake of justice, to bring about justice and fairness upon the land, basically being a witcher of sorts. You can't really, even though like the Witcher portrayed in the Netflix shows more of an ESTP, but that's a whole other approach, and that's debatable, by the way. That's really debatable, so I'll have to watch more of it before I really come to that conclusion, because the writing changes episode by episode. But with that being said, ENTP, Stockholm Syndrome, becoming loyal to the wrong people, being obligated, taking on too many obligations, or being afraid of the unfamiliar, and just that fear, that constant fear, and fear of being uncomfortable, fear of not having their own personal SI needs met, their creature comforts, etc. It could be a serious problem. SI inferior is a serious problem when they give into that fear. And it causes that ISFJ to behave in fear, and it can actually end up exacting justice out of innocent people. And that's the problem with the ISFJ inferior, when it's acting out of fear. Because remember, the virtue advice of the ISFJ is faith versus fear. If the ISFJ subconscious is not acting in accordance to faith, but it's actually acting in accordance to fear, it will basically jump to incorrect conclusions about other people, and then it will basically judge the innocent as guilty. And then I don't know how many times in my life I've had to apologize to so many innocent people that I judged as guilty, and where I would publicly shame them or verbally destroy them, or some other dumb abusive behavior from myself, where I've had to call out people because I incorrectly believed that I was on the side of justice, when the reality of the situation, I was on the side of ignorance and selfishness, and that wasn't really appropriate at all at that point in time. And that could be a serious issue for ENTPs to overcome. And that's what happens when SI inferior is just too afraid and is not transitioning appropriately. It's a serious issue. And that's what that chaotic transition comes out of. But, an orderly transition into the ISFJ subconscious. The ISFJ subconscious is somebody who actually verifies all their beliefs. It's also somebody who becomes very responsible with the people that it helps. And this basically is when TI parent in the ego is able to turn off FE child. Because the ISFJ is like, I don't have to necessarily caretake for people, and I say caretake on purpose, covert contracting people, which is what happens with SI inferior instead of SI aspirational. That chaotic gateway begins, that chaotic behavior, that fear within the SI inferior ends up covert contracting people. Instead, the ISFJ subconscious knows that it can just do things on its own. The ISFJ subconscious is finally allowing the ENTP to become independent. And independent of its own thinking, independent of its own justice, and independent where, while it is affiliative, but it at least is able to verify its own beliefs. It's not having its head in the sand anymore. It's verifying whether or not someone is deserving of their assistance, deserving, right? Kind of like that last episode of Star Trek Picard where Elnor decided to help Captain Picard, or Admiral Picard, I guess, and they said, well, what's the requirement of gaining Elnor's help? And Picard says, well, it has to be a lost cause, and it is a lost cause. And, but it's the ISFJ archetype deciding that, it's worthy. So that's the problem with ENTPs. FE Child just innately believes that everybody is worthy of help. And then eventually the ENTP becomes insanely bitter because of all the people the ENTP has actually helped. And it's like, well, why aren't they helping me? And it's like, because you're covert contracting and you're manipulative, ENTPs. That's not how the world works. So you have to use your ISFJ subconscious to turn off your FE Child so that you actually start, helping the right people. Where helping people that will help you for a fact, because you make it overt and not covert. You're actually telling them that you have this expectation, or that when you help people that you aren't going to get anything back. You are aware of that, and you can't allow yourself to become bitter. And you just have to realize that people are going to be who they are, but your introverted sensing inferior in its aspirational form allows you to have the ability to endure any hardship and endure literally any suffering. So based on that, you realize that you're really strong and you have endured so much in your life. You can endure a lot more, and you can. So at that point in time, you're willing to turn off your FE Child when you need to, because it's like, well, worst case, I'll just do it myself. And that oftentimes is some of the things that I've had to do. Like, especially with like this business, C.S. Joseph, this business that we have, I have so many people trying to sell me these things all the time. Like, actually, just the other day on like Facebook Messenger, I had someone message me like, "Hey, I'll help you out with your ads. If you just click on this link, give me your email. I'll send you some information on how I can help with your ads and whatnot." And I said, "No, thanks." And they're like, "Well, why not? You're going to need to run ads eventually." And I'm like, "Well, while that may be true, I'm just going to read a book and figure it out myself." Because that's the thing, guys. I don't want to be obligated. I do not want to be obligated to these people, and obligated to their way of thinking and their training. I've realized that I've suffered so much in my life that I just don't really need those people. I can be my own person, and I'm just going to read a bunch of books and figure out all of the best ways to do things within those books, throw out the trash, and then take all that information that will be a benefit to me and the systems that I have, and create a new system based on that information. It's no different than what Bruce Lee did with Kung Fu. He literally studied all the different martial arts styles throughout the world, took the best from each, including boxing, and created a new martial arts system based off that. And it is the ultimate martial arts system in the world, Jeet Kune Do. And then you combine that with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you just literally have something insanely powerful that is, quite frankly, unmatched. At the end of the day, it gives a human being the absolute capability to be successful in any situation, any martial arts or related combat situation on the ground. It increases their capability, as well as self-mastery and self-discipline, right? All because he put in the extra time. And that's the thing, the ISFJ subconscious is aware that it can put in the extra time. That's the thing, ENTPs. You have to realize that you keep thinking that you could be the hare, when the reality of the situation is you are the tortoise, and you need to be okay with being the tortoise and focus all of your energy to be the tortoise. Hard work, hardship. You need to seek hard work. You need to seek hardship. You need to seek failure. You need to seek pain, because it's only through pain, only through the crucible of pain and pain of life will you be successful. This is why I tell ENTPs, if you want to develop your SI inferior, if you want to develop your SI inferior gateway and become the greatest ISFJ subconscious, the greatest version of yourself, if you are afraid of something, if you are unfamiliar with something, then you have to do it. Then you have to familiarize yourself with it. You have to. If afraid, then you have to do it. That is literally how you grow SI inferior. That's literally how you handle that gateway. And a lot of ENTPs really struggle with that, but that's what you have to do to get over that gateway. That way you stop being afraid and you start being aspirational, because you start to remember, oh, I've suffered through all these things in life. I can suffer this next thing. I can get through this next hardship. It's not a big deal anymore, I used to be really super afraid of things like car maintenance, or certain forms of homework, or divorce, or all these stupid things, new relationships with people or breaking up with people, afraid of the stupidest things that are just pretty basic, and quite honestly, it's like, oh, this is such a huge complex system and having to do all this and blah, blah, blah. The thing is, though, is that SI inferior becomes SI aspirational, and you have the ability to trial and error your way through anything, and that any additional damage that you take from trial and erroring your way through life, ENTPs, will make you that much more successful, right? It's really what it's all about, because ENTPs, we have this problem. We don't learn from other people's mistakes. We learn from our own mistakes. That's how it works for us. So we need to allow ourselves to put ourselves in positions to make mistakes. The more mistakes we make as ENTPs, the more successful we will be. You have to understand this fundamental truth about the second gateway to be able to access your ISFJ subconscious without being in a fearful manner. If you do it in a fearful manner, well, then you're going to destroy people's lives and destroy their futures, because you're going to be judging the innocent like idiots. And then you're going to feel guilty about it for the rest of your life. I know I do. Then the third gateway, Nemesis, which we already talked about a little bit earlier, all about wrapping one's future around with other people. Being worried about your own future, ENTPs. That's the thing. Like, you stop being worried about your own future. You need to be certain of your own future. Remember, if you already can endure hardship and be like the tortoise and always be successful through hard work, then what's the problem? Why are you so worried about your own future? I mean, look at Naruto, right? The show Naruto. My favorite character in Naruto is Nagato, aka Pain. Pain, who is an ENTP. Pain, who has suffered the pain of SI inferior and pain of life and learning from his mistakes, not other mistakes, and carrying that guilt that he carries for the fact that his friend Yaiko has been killed, etc. And it was technically his fault and whatnot, and how he's trying to right the wrongs. And he ends up sacrificing his life, and he gives up his life to Naruto, ultimately, the INFJ, and save the Leaf Village and give his will, pass it on to Naruto, etc. Just like Tony Stark did, right? Sacrificed his life too. So interesting how these ENTPs work. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same themes, right? Interesting how it works. But that's literally what happens. And Nemesis, being worried for one's own future, can get us into a lot of trouble. And we have that uncertainty constantly. This is what leads us to being the largest hypochondriacs of all the types. And a chaotic transition into INTJ shadow makes us come off as super mega selfish, to the point where we will literally steal from other people. We'll be that difficult treasure hunter. This is why the ENTP is known as the rogue, because we'll use the ranger side of our mind to plunder and steal. And people don't even know that we're doing it, right? And it's also part of the reason why we're so insincere with our insincerity vice, because it's like, wow, I'm taking from other people and they don't even know that I'm taking it, right? And it's really what causes, an INTJ shadow, it's triple movement, like all INTJs. It's super speed, right? And it likes taking the quick route. So when the ENTP is cutting corners and taking the quick route in life, it's because they're worried about their own future, and they're going to lose out on opportunities. The thing is that the ENTP needs to realize with their NI Nemesis is that they have the capability through any hero to create unlimited opportunities for yourself. Literally unlimited opportunity. But the ENTP would have to have more faith in themselves to realize that was the case. And they get more faith in themselves by seeing how much they've suffered. Just like Jafar said, you'd be surprised what you could live through. Okay, that's very ENTP. Be aware of that. You will be surprised what you can live through. And what you live through and what you suffer in life literally gives you power. The more pain you suffer, the more power you have. So start feeling some pain quick, ENTPs, or else you're going to become weak losers. But you'll end up having the highest strength of character out of anyone you ever meet through ISFJ subconscious as a result of suffering that pain. And because of your ability to withstand and endure and persevere, you will not have to be stealing. You can earn everything on your own. It's funny, I just had a family member of mine actually offer to buy me a house and do all this stuff for me recently, and I told them on the phone in front of my wife, I said, no thanks. I will earn it myself. I will handle everything myself. I am not interested in any of that. Nope. While I appreciate the offer, not going to happen. So Yeah, I will earn it myself. And that's the thing, you have to realize, INTJ shadow, you have to become self-reliant. Even though self-reliance is super important to have the self-discipline to be self-reliant, you have to realize is that your future will be okay as long as you don't give up. That's the thing. Like, we get so worried about our own future that we start cutting corners, and then cutting corners ends up destroying us and harming our own future. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, ENTPs. Stop cutting corners. Do it right the first time. It's probably like the best lesson my father has ever taught me. And he's an ENFJ, very benevolent fellow and a very cruel fellow at that. But at the end of the day, I still appreciate him being my dad because he straight up taught me do things right the first time. And I never understood the value of that statement until I stopped cutting corners. I even recently cut a corner with my business. It was really rough. I shouldn't have done it. I'll never do it again. I've cut corners with my health. Stupid of me. Like, it's so stupid because I get so worried about my health and I cut corners. And in fact, one day I cut corner with my health and it almost cost me my liver. What an idiot. Maybe I should have actually spent time doing research first. Oh, wait a minute. That's TE Critic, the research function for ENTPs. ENTPs, you need to freaking read. Like, seriously, you need to read, you need to do research. Your TI parent will pick everything out of what you read and your reading material, what you benefit from, and then throw out the rest, and you can create a new system if you just read a bunch of books on the same subject. ENTPs, it's okay to boil the ocean. I know you probably have that shopkeep at grocery outlet who's an ENFJ getting in your face about how oblivious you are and how oblivious you look because you're just standing there looking at the candy and snacks aisle and not actually moving any boxes. He's like, well, why aren't you doing anything? He's like, well, I'm planning it all out. And he's like, well, no, you're just standing there. And I'm like, okay, whatever, little ENFJ, whatever, little SE child, and it's like, okay, quit the job, tell him to his face, hey, by the way, just so you know, I think you're stupid. Have a nice day. Come on. If I ever had an opportunity to see that ENFJ again, I might actually tell him that to his face because I've probably never met someone more ignorant than him. And someone's got to say it. Because it's like, come on, man. Like, you go out of your way to get everyone else to listen to you, but you won't listen to yourself. That makes you ignorant, which basically makes you unintelligent. Thank you very much, Mr. ENFJ shopkeep who thinks he's going to be the master of grocery outlet one day. Thank you very much, because you're not, and I don't understand how anyone would want to be loyal to you because of your inability to understand people, and yet you pride yourself for understanding people because apparently you're FE hero, which automatically gives you all the authority to understand people. And when you don't understand people, then you make them conform to a mold that you believe is the right mold because you're affiliative and you're TI inferior, so you're too stubborn to listen to anyone else and take on any input. Such a waste. I hope everyone abandons you. They probably have. I don't know. So, but hey, people can change. Maybe he's changed by now. Who knows? I'd be fine with that. Everyone can change, except for some reason ENFJs don't believe people can change, or actually Templar types in general have a hard time believing that people can change, which is really frustrating to me. It's like they're supposed to be so forgiving, and yet they decide to arbitrarily not be forgiving. It's really frustrating. So third gateway, anti-nemesis, or the villain, it can become an ally. And the ally is that you actually go out of your way to make sure that you're not allowing yourself to have this echo chamber in your head. Because remember, the ignorance of TI parent, or the ignorance of TI in general, is two things. Relying on last known input, so you're making decisions based on your last known information, or preferred input, which is basically an echo chamber. You're only listening to thinking or decisions or judgments from other people that you like, that you prefer to listen to, and that's an echo chamber. This is why TE users get so frustrated with TI users and often complain that TI users are coming off arrogant because they're like, well, how do you think you know everything? Because you're just in an echo chamber in your head, or maybe you're just relying on last known input. You know what I'm saying? And because TE users don't do that, so they automatically assume TI users are being arrogant as a result. And it's funny because TI users automatically assume TE users are being ignorant, because it's like, well, you don't even verify your stupid beliefs anyway, so why should I listen to you, right? Everyone is wrong. Everyone is inferior in thinking, be it TI or TE. No one's more correct than the other. The difference is that, it's just who's willing to go beyond just their own nose. You know what I'm saying? Who's willing to go beyond just themselves? That's really the difference, guys. That's That's where the rubber meets the road. Gosh, what a drive. Anyway, I think I'm like on hour 6 of driving today. It's just insanity. It's like literally insanity. All right, I'm finishing like an audiobook immediately after finishing this lecture, and I'm starting another one. Gotta get all those books in, because I'm reading, right? Because that's what TE Critic is all about. You need to read, because your NI nemesis will not be able to have your own future unless you read. Reading helps, because it helps you create good systems so that you can be certain in your future. Why else do you think you're so systematic? You need to bring certainty to your NI nemesis, and you will not be certain unless you do research to be able to create systems that you are certain of to get rid of your NI nemesis worry. Get over your worry. And then you're certain, and then you have that certainty. Certainty is everything to your nemesis function. So you can get over your worry, and then you're certain, and then all of a sudden that INTJ shadow is wise. Instead of being foolish and cutting corners, it's wise and actually guaranteeing that you will give yourself a good future, and you'll be able to pick the appropriate opportunities, and you'll be able to focus. Here's another way to also make yourself certain. You use your introverted intuition nemesis, your INTJ shadow, to actually finish things. You are a starter type, okay? So what you need to do is cut off all incoming information from other people. Shut your door, shut your phone off, whatever it is you have to do, and use your SI inferior self-discipline to do it. Become self-disciplined and cut people off for a certain amount of time so you can actually get work done. For example, my phone is set to do not disturb right now so I could film this lecture, and I don't have any contact with people when I drive, because driving time is sacred to me, because I actually get work done by reading and filming lectures and being a responsible human being while on the road, because I do not allow a single moment of my time to be wasted. Every now and then I'll listen to music as well, because I like how Spotify has release radar or discovery playlists, and I listen to those to keep my music tastes current, because I'm planning on getting into music and producing my own music in the near future, but that's another thing entirely. So yeah, ENTPs, that's what you got to do. You need to get certainty so that you can have your INTJ shadow working for you instead of against you, okay? Stop cutting corners and do it right the first time. You don't know how to do it right? Well, find out. Go research. Get off your lazy ass and do it. I'm tired of y'all being lazy. I used to be lazy. Now I don't. I even got a little bit lazy last year because I got super focused on my health problems instead of actually getting work done, when I should have realized that by reading so much, I would actually get a lot of my health problems fixed, instead of being in the situation. And in fact, it's actually caused me to grow closer to my wife in my marriage to her, because, I'm saving all that additional time to be able to read books with her, and she's getting smarter as I am getting smarter as well, and we're both growing our TE critics simultaneously. Maybe you guys should figure that out, all right? And then finally, the fourth gateway into the superego of the ENTP, the superego, the ESFP superego, which is where it's all about hatred. It's where an ENTP's bitterness exists. Because SI inferior can remember every single person that's ever screwed it ever, and this is where revenge exists within the ENTP. The ENTPs, we are all about revenge. If we ever have the opportunity to press the button on somebody, we definitely will. If they ever wronged us in the past, we will have our revenge. We will get ours, and it can be very vengeful and it's all about hatred, because those people become permanent SE totems within our souls. People have screwed us in the past, and we remember those people and their faces indefinitely. Just so that 10 years down the road, when they're not looking, because revenge is a dish best served cold, we will serve it to them when they least expect it, and deliver a killing blow or some kind of blow that will permanently maim them, so that they never forget us, because we will never forget the pain that they have wrought upon us. They will never forget the pain we will wrought upon them. This is why you have Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones cutting off Theon Greyjoy's dick, because that will be a permanent memory on Theon for the rest of his existence. And Ramsay Bolton is very happy and joyful to relieve Theon of his favorite toy, etc. That's literally SE Demon, folks. That's how it works. Permanent, memorable damage that will haunt them for the rest of their life. And it's because of the bitterness of SI inferior dripping down to the SE demon, because the bitterness that's there of all the suffering that other people have caused to the ENTP and all the injustices that the ENTP has suffered, then it just decides to go to the SE demon hatred and take revenge on people. And that's how the hatred comes out with the ESFP superego. However, it's very important for the SE demon to learn how to love people and recognize that everyone makes mistakes, and that maybe revenge shouldn't be taken, but instead show mercy with ISFJ subconscious and forgive people, because guess what, ENTPs, we're assholes. Let's be honest. We're not that great of a people ourselves, and we cause a lot of damage ourselves. And if we want to be shown mercy, maybe we should be showing mercy. So yeah, that's right, ENTPs. You need to show mercy. It's the right thing to do. It's the best thing to do. It's really what you need to do. You have to show mercy, because unless you're going to show mercy, you will not be shown mercy, right? So you can't be taking revenge. There's a reason why in the Bible it says revenge belongs to God. Revenge is mine and only mine, says the Lord God, not you, not anyone, because quite frankly, this world will not get better unless we learn how to forgive our fellow man. So we have to recognize with our ISFJ subconscious, if we're able to persevere, if we're able to take the hits, if we're able to suffer the injustices of life, if we're able to be steadfast and valiant and take all this hit and suffer all this pain and still be better for it, we have to still have mercy and take the hits that our fellow men nail us with, basically. Because remember what Rocky Balboa said in the most recent Rocky film: life is not about the blows you land. Life is about the blows you can take. It's all about how many hits you can take. And if you're used to able to take hits so much, you'd be growing so much stronger for it. How about you appreciate that pain and the gifts that pain has given you, and forgive your fellow man. Recognize that their pain is probably what caused them to do that to you in the first place. Or maybe you'll find out that your TI was actually ignorant because you're relying on preferred input or last known input because you were ignorant like an idiot. And maybe you should actually have mercy on those people because you probably might not have been aware of all the information in that situation, yet you decided to take out revenge on them. What a moron. Don't be that guy. I'll admit that I have been that guy. But yeah, don't be that guy, ENTPs. Learn to love people. You have to forgive them. You have to be merciful towards them. And, that's literally how the ISFJ subconscious can benefit the superego. And then besides, if you're also learning the superego's interest-based awareness and piping that directly into your SI inferior self-discipline, and you're not allowing other people to take advantage of you, even though you're triple systematic and not very interest-based, if you develop that habit for yourselves, ENTPs, less people will manipulate you, which means you'll be less bitter. Think about that. Which means you'll be more forgiving. Think about that. Which means you will be forgiven. So yeah, love people. It's written. Love your neighbor as yourself. But you cannot love anyone else unless you love yourself first. It's not that hard. Get a grip, ENTPs. Recognize that this is what you need to do for your superego, and that is the orderly transition. That is, through showing love through your orderly transition and not hatred, folks. This is very basic. This is very basic. As a result of understanding how your chaotic transitions work at first versus your orderly transitions, you'll basically get closer to the path of enlightenment. If you want to go deeper on that, there's more information about that at csjoseph.life/Patreon. Watch the season 19 episodes. INTJ and INFJ comes out this month, February 2020, which will be dope, and I hope to see you there. If you found this lecture useful, helpful, educational, enlightening, please subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Also on the podcast, csjoseph.life/podcast to get on the podcast. Leave a comment below if you have any questions about ENTPs and the like. And then please like us as well. We like likes. Likes are dope. Don't forget, guys, I read every comment. I read all of them. May not respond to all of them, but I read them. And if I heart a comment, that basically means I've read it. That doesn't necessarily mean I like the comment. That just means that I've read it. It's like me marking it as read so that you guys know. So I don't necessarily read replies, but I do fresh comments. So if you guys aren't seeing me reply to replies, well, you probably might want to make a fresh comment, because then I'll be able to read that, etc. And no, it's not another member of my team doing it. It's actually me doing it, so don't, freak out about that. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys tonight.